Your AR-15 has an expiration date, not the lower, not the upper. Specific components inside it are on a countdown measured in round count. Most of them cost less than a box of ammo to replace, but you haven't replaced them. You haven't even bought spares. 3,000 rounds into a grid-down scenario, your bolt shear's a lug. No gun store, no Brownells overnight shipping. That rifle is now a paperweight. 10 failure points ranked. Number 1 is the part nobody talks about. It costs $20 to fix forever. Let's start with the cheapest insurance policy in firearms. Number 10, the firing pin retaining pin. This is a cotter pin. It costs 30 cents. It holds your firing pin inside the bolt carrier, and it does exactly one job. It doesn't snap under pressure. It doesn't wear from friction. It falls out. That's it. You're doing a field strip, you're cleaning the bolt on a rock, on a tailgate, on a poncho spread across dirt. That pin drops, it bounces once. It disappears into grass, into gravel, into a crack in the floorboard. Gone. Now your firing pin either slides out the back of the bolt entirely or it floats forward with no retention. A floating firing pin with no retaining pin means the pin can ride forward under inertia when the bolt slams home. That's a slam fire. A round detonating out of battery or before the bolt locks. You don't want to think about what that does to a receiver. You really don't want to think about what it does to your hand. A pack of 5 costs $1 to $2 from Brownells. 5 pins, less than the price of a candy bar. Put 2 in your pistol grip compartment. Put 2 in your maintenance kit. Tape 1 inside your stock. You now have redundancy on a part that weighs less than a paperclip and prevents a catastrophic malfunction. The disconnect between cost and consequence here is enormous. You'll spend $400 on a red dot. You'll spend $60 on a sling. You won't spend $2 on the pin that keeps your rifle from detonating in your hands. That's the gap this entire video's about. The parts you skip because they don't look cool on Instagram are the parts that actually keep the weapon running. Everything on this list follows that same logic. Cheap part, massive consequence. But the next one is the single most common wear item on the entire platform, and most shooters have never once checked it. Number 9, gas rings. 3 small split rings that sit on the tail of your bolt. Their job is simple. They seal gas pressure inside the bolt carrier during the cycling process. Gas pushes the carrier rearward, extracts the spent case, cocks the hammer, and picks up a fresh round. Without adequate gas ring tension, the carrier doesn't travel far enough rearward. That's short stroking. The bolt doesn't pick up the next round. You pull the trigger and nothing happens. You rack the charging handle, clear the malfunction, fire again. Same thing. Your semi-auto just became a single shot. Gas rings degrade through heat cycling. Every round fired superheats gas flowing across those rings. Over time, the rings lose their spring tension and the splits start to align. There's a simple field diagnostic. Stand your bolt carrier group on the bolt face, carrier pointing up. If the carrier collapses under its own weight, your rings are done. That's the carrier tilt test. Takes 2 seconds. Service life runs 5,000 to 15,000 rounds, depending on ammo pressure and gas system tuning. Overgassed carbines eat rings faster. A set of 3 replacement rings costs $2 to $5. 10 spare sets runs you under $50. That's 50,000 to 150,000 rounds of ring replacements for less than the cost of a decent dinner. You can swap them in the field in under a minute with no tools. Just pull the old ones off the bolt tail, roll the new ones on, stagger the splits so they don't align. Done. If you shoot regularly and you've never replaced your gas rings, you're probably already running on borrowed time. Check them tonight. Gas rings seal pressure, but getting the spent case out of the chamber is a completely different job. And when that job fails, it's one of the most dangerous malfunctions you can face. Number 8, the extractor and extractor spring assembly. The extractor is a small hook on the bolt face. It grips the rim of the spent case after firing and pulls it rearward out of the chamber as the bolt cycles. The extractor spring provides the tension that keeps that hook locked onto the case rim. When the spring loses tension or the hook chips, you get a failure to extract. The spent case stays stuck in the chamber. The bolt tries to feed the next live round. Now you've got a live round pressing against a spent case wedged in the chamber. That's a double feed. Under stress, under fire, in the dark. This is one of the slowest malfunctions to clear. You have to lock the bolt back, strip the magazine, sometimes mortar the rifle to free the stuck case. In a firefight, that's an eternity. The extractor spring degrades between 5 and 10,000 rounds under normal use. Steel-cased ammo accelerates hook wear significantly because the case material is harder and rougher on the extractor claw. You can visually inspect the hook for chips and rounding, but spring tension loss is invisible until it fails. A complete extractor assembly runs $8 to $15, stock 3. The BCM extractor spring upgrade kit is worth mentioning here. It uses a heavier spring with a rubber insert that increases extraction reliability and extends service life past the standard window. It's a few dollars more, and it's a genuine improvement, not marketing fluff. 3 spare assemblies and 1 upgraded spring kit. That's your extractor covered for the long haul. Swap time is 5 minutes with a punch and no bench required. Extractors pull cases out. But the component absorbing the most punishment every single shot is the one you can't see working. Number 7. The bolt itself. 7 locking lugs machined into the bolt head. These lugs rotate into the barrel extension and lock the bolt into battery. Every round fired, those lugs absorb the full chamber pressure of a .556 cartridge. We're talking roughly 62,000 psi slamming into those lug faces every time you pull the trigger. The bolt is made from Carpenter 158 or 9310 steel. At the factory, quality bolts are MPI tested, magnetic particle inspected, to find subsurface cracks. They're also HPT tested, high pressure tested, by firing a proof round that exceeds standard chamber pressure. Those tests matter. Buy bolts that have both. Bolt failure starts at the cam pinhole. That hole is a stress riser, a point where the geometry concentrates force. Cracks propagate from the cam pinhole outward through the lug roots. A cracked bolt might keep firing for hundreds of rounds. That doesn't make it safe. A catastrophic bolt failure sends gas, fragments, and pressure rearward through the carrier and into the receiver, into your face. Service life runs 10 to 20,000 rounds. Overgassed systems, hot-loaded ammo, and sustained rapid fire all shorten that window. You should inspect your bolt lugs with magnification every 1,000 rounds. You're looking for hairline cracks at the cam pinhole and along the lug roots. A jeweler's loop works. A spare bolt runs $25 to $50. A complete spare bolt carrier group runs $60 to $150. This is the single most important spare part an AR owner can buy. Not a spare upper, not a spare lower, a spare bolt. If you buy one thing after watching this video, make it a bolt. Match it to your barrel extension. Confirm headspace if you're cautious. Drop it in your kit and forget about it until the day you need it. That day, it's worth more than the rifle itself. Now, if you've been paying attention, you'll notice every failure so far has a clear diagnostic. Carrier tilt test, visual inspection, obvious malfunction pattern. This next one doesn't. Number 6, the buffer spring. It lives inside your buffer tube and you never see it. Its job is returning the bolt carrier forward after every cycle. It strips a round from the magazine, pushes the bolt into battery, and provides the counterforce that keeps the action running in time. Buffer spring tension degrades gradually. There's no cliff, no dramatic snap, just a slow slope of declining performance. Symptoms look like everything else on this list: weak ejection patterns, brass dribbling out the port instead of flinging 3 to 5 feet, intermittent failures to feed, bolt not going fully into battery. You'll chase gas rings, you'll chase the extractor, you'll swap magazines, and the whole time it's the spring. There's no simple field test. You can't measure buffer spring tension with your hands. The only reliable diagnostic is substitution. Swap in a known good spring and see if the problems disappear. That means you need a spare. Standard carbine buffer springs run $5 to $10. Enhanced springs from Sprinko or JP Enterprises run $15 to $30 and provide more consistent tension over a longer service life. The Sprinko Blue is specifically designed for the standard carbine system, and it's a genuine upgrade, not snake oil. Stock 2 to 3 springs. Mark them. Rotate them if you want to extend total life. The buffer spring is the part that makes you feel like you're going crazy chasing a malfunction that doesn't have a single clear cause. The fix costs $10. The frustration of not having a spare costs you hours of troubleshooting you can't afford when survival's on the line. Everything so far can be swapped in the field in minutes. This next one can't. And that's exactly why you need to think about it now. Number 5. The gas tube. Pay attention to this one. Most preppers stock bolts and springs. Almost nobody stocks a gas tube. It's a thin stainless steel tube that routes combustion gas from the gas block back through the upper receiver to the gas key on top of the bolt carrier. That gas pressure is what cycles the action. Without it, your semi-automatic AR becomes a straight pull bolt action. You manually rack every round. Your rate of fire drops from 45 to 60 rounds per minute to maybe 10. In a defensive scenario, that's the difference between suppressive fire and getting overrun. Gas tubes corrode from the inside out. Hot, carbon-fouled gas flows through that tube every shot. Over thousands of rounds, pinhole leaks develop. The junctions where the tube meets the gas block and where it passes through the upper receiver are the weak points. Corrosion accelerates in humid environments. Salt air, swamp conditions, coastal storage. A spare gas tube costs $10 to $20 depending on gas system length, carbine, mid-length, or rifle length. Make sure you match your system. Here's the catch. Replacement requires removing the handguard, accessing the gas block, driving out a roll pin, pulling the old tube, installing the new one, reassembling everything. It's the most involved repair on this list. You need punches, a vice block helps, and you need to have done it at least once before you need to do it under pressure. Buy a spare tube now. Install it on a Sunday afternoon when nothing is wrong. Learn the process. Time yourself. Because if you're doing this for the first time in a crisis, you're burning daylight you don't have. The failure mode is total and the repair is not trivial. That combination makes this one of the most overlooked vulnerabilities on the platform. If the gas tube keeps the action cycling, this next item keeps the action fed. And you need a lot more of them than you think. Number 4. Magazines. This isn't glamorous, it's logistics. Feed lips bend from repeated loading and unloading. Magazine, springs weaken over thousands of compression cycles. Polymer cracks in extreme cold. Aluminum USGI magazines are treated as disposable by military doctrine. They're meant to be loaded, used, and discarded in the field. That tells you everything about their expected lifespan. Minimum 10 magazines per rifle. 20 is the real number. Magpool Gen 3 PMags run $8 to $12 each. They're polymer, reinforced, dust-covered, and they've been torture tested by more independent reviewers than any other magazine on the market. 20 PMags costs you $160 to $240. That's roughly one case of quality 5.56. One case of ammo to guarantee you can keep feeding the rifle for thousands of rounds. Mark every magazine with a number, Sharpie on the base plate. If a magazine causes a malfunction, pull it from rotation immediately. Don't try to fix bent feed lips. Don't try to re-bend aluminum. It's not worth the risk of a feeding failure when your life depends on it. Retire it. Use it as a training mag only. Here's the angle nobody brings up. Magazines are barter currency. In a grid-down scenario, everyone with an AR needs magazines. They're lightweight, universally compatible with the most common rifle platform, and their value only goes up as supply disappears. 20 magazines isn't hoarding, it's investment. Some of them stay loaded in your kit, some of them sit in a can as trade goods. Same caliber, same platform. Instant value to anyone with an AR pattern rifle. Now, this next one is going to surprise you. It's not a part. It's not something you can machine or forge or scavenge from another rifle. But without it, everything you've stocked so far is worthless. Number 3. Lubrication. Your AR runs on oil. The direct impingement gas system blows hot, dirty, carbon-fouled gas directly into the bolt carrier group. That gas is abrasive. Without lubrication, metal-on-metal contact accelerates wear on every moving surface. The bolt carrier, the cam pin channel, the charging handle track, the buffer-and-buffer spring interface. A dry AR begins malfunctioning within 1 to 2 magazines under dusty conditions. That's 30 to 60 rounds before you're getting failures to extract, failures to feed, and sluggish cycling. The Aberdeen Proving Ground test in 2007 documented this clearly. 10 M4 carbines produced 882 stoppages over the test. Lubrication discipline was a primary variable, stock CLP and quantity. Break-free CLP is the baseline. It cleans, lubricates, and protects. A 4-ounce bottle treats the BCG, cam pin, charging handle, and buffer assembly for dozens of range sessions. But here's the field expedient backup you need to remember. Motor oil. 5W30 from any vehicle, any generator, any abandoned truck on the side of the road. It works. It's not optimized. It attracts more dust than purpose-built CLP. It doesn't have corrosion inhibitors, but it keeps the gun running. That's all that matters when your bottle of CLP runs dry 3 weeks into a collapse. Don't let anyone tell you motor oil damages an AR. It doesn't. It's heavier, it's dirtier, and you'll clean more often. But a lubricated rifle that runs beats a clean rifle that doesn't. Stock 4 to 6 bottles of CLP in your kit. Throw a quart of motor oil in your vehicle bag as a backup. This is the cheapest, lightest, most overlooked piece of your rifle's survival equation. A $2 bottle of oil is the difference between a functioning weapon system and an expensive club. Speaking of function versus failure over the long haul, let's talk about the component with the longest service life on this list but the least forgiving replacement process. Number 2, the barrel. Your barrel doesn't break, it erodes. Chamber throat erosion happens round by round as hot gas and bullet friction wear away the rifling at the throat, the area just forward of the chamber where the bullet first engages the lands. Over thousands of rounds, that throat moves forward. Accuracy degrades, groups open up. Eventually, gas sealing suffers and velocity drops. Chrome-lined barrels last 15 to 20,000 rounds before meaningful accuracy degradation. Non-chrome stainless match barrels, the ones that shoot sub-MOA groups off a bench, degrade sooner. 10 to 15,000 rounds, sometimes less with hot ammunition. Here's the reframe you need to hear. Sub-MOA accuracy is irrelevant for survival shooting. You're not punching tiny groups at 100 yards from a bench rest. You're engaging threats at 15 to 200 yards from improvised positions under stress. 2 MOA with a chrome-lined barrel that resists corrosion, handles abuse, and lasts 20,000 rounds beats half MOA from a stainless barrel that erodes faster and rusts if you look at it wrong. Choose your barrel now while you can. If you're building or buying, go chrome-lined. If you're already running a stainless match barrel, understand its lifespan and plan accordingly. Barrel replacement requires an armorer's wrench, a vise block, a torque wrench, and headspace gauges. That's not a field repair. You're not swapping a barrel at a campsite. The action item here isn't stocking a spare barrel. It's making the right choice on the barrel you're running now. Chrome-lined, government profile or lightweight profile in the gas system length that matches your tube. Cold hammer forged if you can afford it. FN, Daniel Defense, and Criterion all make barrels that'll outlast your round count if you're honest about your round count. Most shooters will never burn through a chrome-lined barrel in their lifetime. But if you're planning for a scenario where resupply doesn't exist, every round matters, and the barrel that's still accurate at 15,000 rounds is worth more than the one that's sub-MOA at 500. If you only knew your barrel was chrome-lined and your bolt was fresh, you'd already be ahead of 90% of AR owners. But here's the thing. Those are the parts people think about. The part nobody thinks about is the one that holds the entire system together. And when it fails, it mimics every other malfunction on this list. Number 1. The castle nut and receiver end plate. This is the reveal nobody expects. The castle nut threads onto the back of your lower receiver and locks the buffer tube in place. The receiver end plate sits between the castle nut and the lower receiver, providing a mounting point for your sling and retaining the rear takedown pin detent spring. The buffer tube holds your buffer spring, your buffer, and if you're running a collapsible stock, the entire stock assembly. When the castle nut loosens, the buffer tube shifts. When the buffer tube shifts, everything changes. The buffer spring tension changes. The buffer travel changes. The stock wobbles. The rear takedown pin detent can lose retention. Malfunctions start appearing that look like short stroking, like buffer spring problems, like gas issues. You'll chase your tail replacing parts that aren't broken because the actual problem is invisible from the outside. A loose castle nut produces progressive unreliability. It doesn't fail catastrophically, it degrades slowly. Your rifle gets a little less reliable every range session, every few hundred rounds. You can't pin it down. That's the danger. Budget rifles routinely ship with cosmetic staking. The factory uses a punch to make a mark that looks like a proper stake, but doesn't actually deform metal into the notch on the castle nut. It's decoration. It's there, so it looks right in a photo. But it provides zero rotational lock. Inspection takes 60 seconds. Look at the end plate where it meets the castle nut. There should be visible metal deformation pushed into one or both of the castle nut's notches. If you see a dimple that sits on the flat surface and doesn't actually enter the notch, that's cosmetic staking. It's doing nothing. A proper staking tool costs $20 to $30. The Wheeler Armorer's tool works. So does a dedicated staking tool from Real Avid. You put the receiver in a vise, you position the staking tool on the end plate directly over the castle nut notch, and you strike it with a hammer. Metal deforms into the notch. The castle nut cannot rotate. Done. Permanent. If you don't want a stake, blue Loctite on the threads provides a secondary lock. It's not as permanent as staking, but it prevents casual loosening from vibration and recoil. A compact AR multi-tool with a castle nut wrench runs $15 to $25. Keep one in your range bag and one in your kit. Check your castle nut torque every 500 rounds until you've staked it. After staking, check it once a year. That's it. $20 for a staking tool, $15 for a wrench, 60 seconds of inspection, and you've eliminated a failure point that masquerades as 6 different problems. If I could only grab 3 things from this entire list, it'd be a spare bolt, a bottle of CLP, and a staking tool. The bolt is the heart. The oil is the blood. The staking tool makes sure the skeleton doesn't come apart. 3 items, under $100. That's not a shopping list. That's a rifle that runs when everything else has stopped. If you're thinking about what happens when the grid goes down and you need a plan that goes beyond just the rifle, I've put together a guide that covers the bigger picture. First link in the description. Total investment for every item on this list. Every spare part, every spring kit, every magazine, every bottle of CLP, under $300. That's less than a decent optic. That's less than most people spend on one range day with ammo at 30 to 40 cents a round. You've got $1,500 in that rifle and $0 in the parts that keep it running. $300 fixes that. I've written up a broader guide on preparing for when everything falls apart, and it's waiting for you in the description. So here's the question. What's your round count on your current bolt? Do you even know?